The Great Ocean Road is one of the most iconic stretches of road in Australia. Winding its way along 243 kilometres of rugged coastline, it connects townships that were once only accessible by boat or by an arduous journey through hard country. Built in part by returned servicemen, the road is a living memorial to the Victorians who served in World War I and the longest war memorial in the world. 2019 marks 100 years since construction began. Anglesea is 114 kilometres from Melbourne. It's one of the largest towns along the Great Ocean Road, with a population of just over 2,500. First inhabited by the Wadawurrung people, the original name of the area was Karakadola, which means fishing place.
So we knew what times of year that we could head to different areas along that coastline and what would be available for us. Anglesea was a place where we'd fish for mullet. That coastline is a journey of the Wadawurrung people that they occupied for thousands of years. And it should be embraced, and it should be part of the whole journey of anyone taking on the Great Ocean Road.
European settlers introduced sheep farming in the 1850s, when the area was known as Swampy Creek. Some land in town was subdivided in the 1880s and was purchased by people who came to the area for hunting and fishing. Soon after, the first boarding houses were built to cater for new holiday makers. Anglesea was an important stop for the Cobb & Co mail coach service from Geelong.
There is a story that prior to embarkation on the Cobb & Co coach at Deans Marsh, passengers were given a very hearty meal, not realising at the time that it was to build their energy, because they actually had to get off the coach and help push the coach and horses up over the top of the rise. There are photos of these Cobb & Co coaches absolutely laden with people and their luggage, way beyond what would be considered a legal load limit today.
The Cobb & Co services would eventually come to an end due to the rising popularity of the motor vehicle and the construction of the Great Ocean Road. Before construction began, survey teams needed to scout out the land to map out the best route for the road.
In September of 1918, the first survey team commenced work on mapping the path for the Great Ocean Road. In September of 1919, we saw the establishment of the first workers' camp near St George River. On the 19th of September 1919, the Premier, Mr Lawson, fired the first charge to start the project.
The Great Ocean Road was constructed, in part, by soldiers who had fought in World War I. In 1922, the section of the Great Ocean Road from Anglesea to Aireys Inlet was built.
In the early days, it was an extremely tough job. It would have been a very different environment for most of them to work in this territory. The surveyors over the mountainous areas of the Otways had laid out their survey lines along the ridges at the top of the cliff, and these returned servicemen lowered themselves over the cliff with just a rope tied around their waist, and they lowered themselves to the level where the road was to be constructed.
It was very, very steep country, and they had to find the surveyors' line pegs, and then they'd dig a hole for their foot and try and stand up straight, and that was a big effort. And then they had to dig between him and his mate and so on, until they made a track they could walk along. They only had a pick and a shovel.
The soldiers could not stand the use of explosives because it brought back too many memories, and many of them were still suffering from shell shock.
They just come out of the trenches, and some of them used to get very upset when the blasting went on. In fact, Hitchcock Memorial, which is around at Mount Defiance, there's a gully just before you get to that. It's called Suicide Gully. And one bloke, badly shell-shocked, he'd had enough and he went over the edge, jumped over. But he was the only one we heard about that ever did anything like that.
A shudder to think how different it is and the risks that the returned soldiers took to build the road 100 years ago. A lot of the rock removal works that we do involves safety harnesses and a lot of protocols in place to make sure that our workers are safe. And you look back at some of the photos of some of the men working high up on the cliff without any sort of harnesses, shifting some rocks and dirt with very steep drop-offs. Yeah, it does really show a contrast in working standards and safety standards, between now and back then.
Anglesea is a celebration of life by the water. A perfect place for families who love the beach and the great outdoors. To hear more stories of the Great Ocean Road, travel east to Torquay or west to Lorne, Wye River and Apollo Bay.